John in the UK, my goodness. You are on the line with Jimmy and Eric. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm quite good. You sound a bit more Australian. Do you want to work on the accent you're choosing for this call?
I'm not choosing an accent. I am English.
This is the real one. All right, fair enough. Go on, John. Give it to me. I'm waiting. Oh, wrong.
Well, I've been watching your show for many years, and I think it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And you base a great deal on factual evidence.
Yes.
Is it not fair to say that there is factual evidence with the male and female body designed for heterosexuality rather than homosexuality?
You are correct. It is not fair to say that anything was designed for anything. Now, if you want to say that the continuation of our species clearly shows a species which propagates a high proportion of the population, a high percentage of the population will tend to have a drive toward heterosexual, not just sex, but reproduction, that you definitely could say. But I wouldn't be so careless with my words as you had been so far, John.
But could you therefore not say that if people do not choose their sexual orientation, they do choose how they act upon it and choose whether or not to act upon it?
Sure.
And that there are many who choose not to act upon it?
Correct.
And do you believe those people to be better, worse, or equal to those who do not choose to act upon it?
It will depend entirely, because I do not give a shit if anybody with higher cognitive ability decides they do or don't want children. That is totally up to them and none of my gosh dang business, unless they are in some way doing so in a way so irresponsible it's actually harming society. So that would actually be a case against some people having heterosexual sex, not having it. But otherwise, as far as the sexual act goes, if your proclivity excludes the consent of another being, then I would say I think it is very good of you to deny that sexuality. If it does not exclude the consent of another individual, as in everything is always consensual, then I would say in that scenario, all sexual acts are equal.
But are they equal if the people live in a country where certain acts are illegal?
The acts themselves would still be equal from a moral sense to me. If they are illegal, I would suggest that a person maybe consider pragmatically whether or not they want to break those laws, but I do not consider something moral simply because a government has said it is legal or illegal.
I didn't use the word morality. I was simply saying that in practical terms, it might be better for certain people to choose not to act upon their feelings.
Yes, for their safety, that may be the case.
It's just that I've worked in countries where that is the case.
Mm-hmm.
And those people usually make a conscious choice.
Yep, because
not to act upon that.
Yep, but sexual compulsion is very strong for a lot of people, and for some people, the risk and reward of the bonding with another human, feeling sexually and emotionally fulfilled is worth that risk. Or they mistake whether it's worth that risk because when we are sexually aroused, certain cognitive faculties actually decrease, which is also probably a part of why the species propagated so much and is an unfortunate thing that evolution has favored.
Are you someone who believes that there is a gene with regard to homosexuality?
I believe that whether a person is queer or not is likely due to multiple factors, and that there are individuals who are queer, that there is a genetic presence that looks like it is relevant to their queerness, and there are other queer individuals who do not have that. In fact, I think it is more likely the case that most people are some level of bisexual. However, they may have a high intensity of preference one way or the other. I actually don't buy that everybody is just completely straight. I am myself a bisexual man who most often finds myself with at least feminine individuals, which results usually in that feminine person being woman. So I do not think that there is a distinctive gene. I think that human psychology is much more complex than that. I know it's much more complex than that, and that multiple things could affect that, and that there is probably some balance of nature versus nurture, and it will be different for every individual.
Why do you think, therefore, that so many cultures condemn homosexuality?
Religious bigotry
really
and the fact I can answer very easily. Most societies are patriarchal, and patriarchal people who get into power in the past have been the strongest, which doesn't necessarily mean that they are the smartest. In fact, often quite the inverse. It means that their body may have supported certain resources over another. I think that people who are in those patriarchal societies tend to have it reinforced into them that homosexuality is disgusting and a threat to their own sexuality and perception of masculinity to even abide it or act like it doesn't. And I think that it is a cultural export that is reinforced by a lot of religions. Fact of the matter is that most of the world are members of the Abrahamic religion, which have a historical past going well in hundreds of years into the BC of being homophobic, and breaking free of that homophobic ideology has been extremely difficult.
But if you look at the Chinese culture, where religion really doesn't exist at all, they still have considerable homophobia.
Interesting how you totally ignored my first part of that, because you literally only went to the part where I included that it has been reinforced by the religious issue. And so Chinese homophobia, they still exist in homophobic cultures, and China, still a mostly patriarchal society. We actually see in places that are less patriarchal, that sentiment, we can see that it is a learned behavior because children are being raised without homophobia, and it doesn't require counter programming. If you just don't teach them to be homophobic, they tend not to be.
But why would patriarchs be homophobic?
Because
if the original point was that most people are bisexual anyway.
Because they reject that side of them and they associate masculinity with heterosexuality. And as I mentioned, bisexuality doesn't mean 50-50, and that they may have a heavy preference in lean, and that these more testosterone-laden, stronger males have often been the people in power in the past, not necessarily the best thinkers or the most empathetic people, because might made right in a lot of these societies, especially modern day societies that we pretend are democracies at times, and that deep influence of not just masculinity, but toxic masculinity, they find it emasculating for queer people to exist. If you are quite done with the line of why queer though, shouldn't it be it seems like your original assertion was that biology points to a necessity for heterosexuals. And I want to know what you think. Therefore, what? If biology prefers there to be more heterosexuals in a population, if that is, and I think you mean evolution, that we as a species have evolved to be at least mostly capable of heterosexual sex, not necessarily heterosexuality itself. Therefore, what?
Therefore, why I still cannot understand. Why are you linking necessarily heterosexuality and masculinity?
Because uber masculine, toxic masculine, and masculine people in power find the existence of queer people emasculating.
And why is that?
You'd have to ask them. I'm not a toxic man. You'd have to ask them.
But I fail to see why.
John, are you homophobic? Do you find, if you see two gay men kissing, do you withdraw? Do you find that repulsive?
No.
Good. You know that many men do, right?
Yes.
But what do you think the difference is between you and them?
I think it's the same reaction that many people would have at the thought of their parents having a sexual relationship.
Why? No, we're talking about learned behavior. How come homosexuals don't describe the same problem with seeing reflections of heterosexuality, such as a man and a woman kissing, in popular media, since it's all over the place, and also public displays of affection are all over the place and wildly embraced for heterosexuals, but not homosexuals? Why is it that people who feel they are 100% homosexual, whether that's true or not, but as gay, as straight men believe they are straight, they don't en masse suffer the same problem with that which they are exposed to constantly?
I think that's just a simple matter of percentages.
It's a simple matter of it's a simple matter of it is culturally reinforced that gay, ooh, bad, and straight, normal. That's the normal stuff. That is culturally reinforced. John, you're a theist. Do you believe queer people should be allowed to be queer with each other?
Yes.
Why do you give a shit then?
I think there's a difference between being queer and having sex.
Why? Okay, do you believe I should be allowed to have sex with a queer man?
If that's your choice, yes.
Great. Do you believe that if I do that, I will go to hell for doing so?
Probably, yes.
Great. What is your evidence that hell exists?
I think in some ways hell exists during life, not necessarily after death.
John,
you understand the question, right?
Yes,
Why do you think a supernatural hell exists?
Don't take over right as I'm getting to my climax. I'll give it back to you. I promise.
What I do.
This is where you did it last time too. And I was like, I was about to get there. John, where is your evidence that the hell you believe I will go to for having homosexual sex exists?
I'm saying that any sex anyone has is a choice. No one can choose the feelings they have, but they can choose what they do about it. A heterosexual man can choose not to. Great.
John, I do not need a recap. Unlike our last caller, I'm capable of remembering things I've just been told. So, John, where is your evidence that if I have sex, I choose to have sex with a man, that will result in me going to hell?
Because if someone is a theist, that they believe that there are consequences to action.
I'm not a theist, and I believe there are consequences to action. So now I'll restate the question with your new wording, because you are so pedantically trying to avoid what you are eventually going to get to, which is that you are going to admit very soon that your belief I'm going to hell is not evidence-based and is faith-based, and then you're going to end up admitting that you cannot prove that your faith is better than anyone else's faith, or that anyone else should take anything based on faith. But I'm trying to step you there one at a time, and you're trying to avoid it, even though you and I both know that that is what is coming. So now, reworded the way you need it, my good fellow, where is your evidence that the consequence of me having sex with a man will be that I will go to hell?
No one knows that will definitely happen.
So where is your evidence that it will happen or might happen?
It might happen because that's a conscious choice you choose to make.
Nope. Might happen would include so first of all, to say something could happen would suggest that you've actually demonstrated possibility, that it's even possible for that. I have yet to see any evidence that hell existing is even possible, let alone true. So once again, I know now I've told you the playbook, and now you just don't want to get there. Can you prove that the hell that you are saying I will go to as a consequence of my action exists, or that the threat of it existing is so substantial that I should be a part of your religion? And then once you have established that your religion will have the correct guidelines for avoiding this hell versus any other religion's hell. You may pick any of those three questions to answer.
I do not believe that someone has to abide by certain religious rules, but they have to be willing to accept that there might be a possibility afterlife of consequences of those choices.
Great. Great. I'm so glad you said that, even though it's still not an answer to my question. Can you prove that an afterlife is possible?
No.
So why do I have to accept something you can't prove is even possible?
I don't believe you have to accept it.
Yes, you did. You said you have to accept that it is possible that the consequences of your actions on earth will happen in the afterlife. That is what you just stated. You said I have to accept that, which requires me to do a fallacy called begging the question, which is accepting that in the first place, heaven actually could exist or hell might be possible. And no such evidence has been shown to me that either of those could exist or be possible. That is not to say that I have had evidence that they are impossible or couldn't exist. I am agnostic to the propositions because no evidence in either direction, which what often happens with unfalsifiable beliefs, has been shown. So I do not, in fact, have to accept that that could be the case because coulds have never been demonstrated.
But there is the possibility that it could be, and you make a choice to take that risk.
Incorrect. You have not demonstrated that there is a possibility that it could be. Possibility is also a claim. Separate from the claim of is possible is also a claim. There are many things that are impossible. There are many things that are possible. The fact that nothing has been proven to be impossible does not make it automatically then possible. You can say, I have accepted that it, on the basis of it not being proven impossible, I've decided to treat it as pragmatically possible, despite the fact that no such thing has been shown to be beneficial. And I would say, yeah, no shit, John, that's what religious people do in general. And then they pretend it's as good as facts. But you cannot say that it is possible unless you can demonstrate that it is possible.
But you cannot prove that hell does not exist.
Correct. And you cannot prove that it does or that it's possible that it exists. So
you have
John,
to choose whether to take the risk.
Nope.
John, when you have something that you can't show to exist and you can't show to not exist, you ignore it. The same way you do with unicorns and everything else that we don't have evidence for or against. So by your own admission, John, earlier, by your own admission, you have, John, by your own admission earlier, you don't have any good reason. John, by your own admission earlier, John, by your own admission earlier, you don't have anything you can demonstrate to us or show us or even speak to us about when it comes to the afterlife. You have nothing to show us. So we are perfectly justified in ignoring it. And it also tells us the fact that you still believe in it, you aren't believing in it for rational or logical reasons. You have some type of emotional component there, whether it be fear or a vindictive attitude to see people suffer that you don't like. We don't know and we don't care. We only care what you can show us and you can demonstrate to us. So we'll ask you again, is there anything you can present to us?
No, I'll change the question.
I'm meeting you.
I don't want to do the same question. Now I want to do, right. John, you said you have to choose whether to take the risk. Can you prove there's a risk?
No, I can't.
Correct. So I don't have to choose whether to take the risk because there is no risk proven to be necessary to choose between. So I don't have to. There is.
You have to.
Yes, you did. You literally did. You said you have to decide whether or not to take the risk, and you can't prove there is a risk. Why? How many unproven risks do I have to decide to take? There, by your logic, I also have to decide whether or not to take the risk that putting on a black t-shirt will anger a god I've never heard of, and as a result, he's going to stab me in the penis for all of eternity. I can't prove that that risk exists, but because I articulated it, now I guess it does because I said it out loud. And John, you haven't proved that the penis stabber, he ain't a coming. John, are you going to wear a black shirt ever again? Why are you taking the risk of the black shirted penis stabber?
If that is the case, why is it so many people?
Oh, no, John, answer my question. Why are you taking the risk of the black shirted penis stabber?
Everything is a risk in life.
Why are you taking the risk of the black shirted penis stabber? No, it's not. Everything's not a risk in life. We don't know what isn't a risk. Not everything we know.
Everything in life is
great, John. I am as compelled by your God to not fuck whatever man I want, since you haven't proven it's a real risk, as you are compelled by my black shirted penis stabber. Congratulations, John. You have just articulated for everyone here that you do not have a basis upon which to claim your risk and odds of your belief are better than one I make up off the top of my head, because your basis was literally, you can't prove that guy doesn't exist. And you haven't proved that, I'm going to name him, Hank the penis stabber, who stabs people who wears black shirts, doesn't exist. So John, now if you would like to present a good reason to believe he exists or the risk of him exists, we would hear that.
Why take that chance? Why take that chance?
Why
if you're
are you
not
taking
sure?
what chance? Prove there's a chance, John. We've already done this. You've just changed the word. Can you prove that there is a chance hell exists?
Can you prove there is a chance that hell does not?
Nope. Therefore, we should dismiss it like Hank the goddamn penis stabber. Can you not remember things that happened 15 seconds ago? My God! It is so frustrating, John. It's so frustrating to do this show week after week, month after month, to take a break and come back, and you're just hearing the same look at the trees bullshit. Don't have gay sex. Because that's going to make the creator of the universe, who created everything, a massive universe beyond the size of our ability to actually conceive, with a massive amount of time that we can't even really conceive. And that man created the whole universe in mind, and what he really, really cares about is if one penis goes into the mouth and or anus of another penis haver. And if you don't do that, you might get to go to heaven. And if you do that, you're gonna go to a place where the guy who loves you, like a parent loves a child, would torture you forever. And you can't prove it, but you want me to keep my boners to myself, because if I don't, your imagined individual might punish me. But you're not worried. You're not worried about Hank the penis stabber. You don't think about Hank the penis stabber at all. You might now, because you didn't hear about Hank the penis stabber. And it doesn't bother you that all of these different people have their own religious myths across the world, and that oftentimes controlling sexuality in general is such a heavy part of it, and that it tends to benefit specifically the cis-het males, but not the other people, that they actually get to demand other people's bodies and own other people's bodies. Those aren't the sexual sins you worry about, that the Bible established a method by which girls really are owned by their fathers, and that property can be transferred to another man through something that you want to call marriage. But that sort of sexual slavery is an institution you find so holy that you would deny queer people the ability to do it. Maybe not you specifically, but so many people did. None of these things bother you. You're not thinking about Hank the penis stabber. You got to think about Hank, John. Why take the risk? Your penis is going to get stabbed if you have one. Why take the risk, John? Why take the chance?
Do you agree that heterosexuality has a use in society?
Yes, obviously. No, well, okay, wait. Heterosexual sex has a use in society. Heterosexuality, the orientation, is inconsequential. If the entire world was actually fully 50-50 bisexual, it wouldn't make a significant difference, because the value of having a child and a biological child wouldn't change much. This is why gay couples still tend to want to have children. But heterosexual sex of some type clearly has, Siri couldn't understand. Heterosexual sex has a benefit, sure. And by the way, that benefit is starting to go away, John, because we've actually figured out ways to replace it. If you're talking about typical heterosexual sex, not just an egg and a sperm coming together.
And what use does homosexual sex have to society?
Fun, enjoyment, validation, propagation of the sociality of our species. The same thing, John, are you saying you don't masturbate because it doesn't benefit society at all?
But there is no risk to masturbation.
No. Yes, there is. Of course there's a risk to everything, John. You said it earlier. Of course there are risks. Fucking chafing, UTIs if you didn't clean your hands right. I sure hope you did, but people in the past. And by the way, John, there's no risk to safe homosexual sex, not any more than homosexuals, and we are than heterosexual sex. And people literally have, John, do you believe it's okay for heterosexuals, married presumably because you're a Christian, to have sex with their wives for fun? Or should they stop having sex the moment, let's say a woman is no longer able to have children? Should her and her husband stop having heterosexual sex?
Yes.
Shut the fuck up. You do not believe that, John. You are such a fucking liar. Are you even a Christian? I've never, ever. In fact, the Christian view is that the marriage bed is untainted. You gotta fuck as long as you want for whatever reason you want. The fuck is wrong with you?
I had a grandmother who decided never to have sex again once she'd had the number of children she wanted.
Great. And I love that your grandmother got to decide that. Your grandma was probably a lesbian and didn't want to fuck her husband. Sorry to break it to you, John. She should have grown up in a different world, though it would have meant you don't exist. And how would we have gotten to have this call that included theist debunking bullshit ASMR? But John, who gives a fuck? Do you think, I'm not saying she doesn't get to choose not to have sex. I'm saying, should people stop having sex? Okay, John, here you go. If it becomes safer to have sex via IVF and that is accessible to everyone, should all people stop having sex?
That's their choice.
No, John. One would have a risk to society, a bigger risk. You said homosexuality, you shouldn't do it because there's a risk. Heterosexual sex has risks. So if it becomes safer to do IVF, should they stop taking the risk of typical sex? Be consistent,
No.
John. No, because your whole thing is bullshit. If what you said earlier was consistent, you would have said yes. But you're full of shit, John, and you just don't want gay people to fuck each other.
No, I want gay people to have a choice, to make that choice.
Everyone has a choice, John. We feel very compelled by our choices, and denying yourself heterosexual sex results in what happened in Utah. A bunch of children killing themselves because they felt that the choice they wanted to make was an abomination to God. So yes, I want them to have the choice and to make it consensually, freely, and willingly for the betterment of their physical and mental health, because denying people that fucks them up, John. That's the bigger risk.
But a gay man can choose not to have sex if he wants.
I'm a queer man and I'm not having sex right now, as far as you know. Doesn't mean that there won't be consequences of denying yourself that part of your personality, and it's going to be more important to some people and less important to others.
Well, some people can live a whole life without having sex.
Right, and
without
some
a
people
problem.
feel they can't. Look at the incel movement, who is making their perpetual virginity because they can't stand to be not rude to women and treat them respectfully. How those little fucking freaks are making it everybody else's problem.
So you're saying there's no sexual morality at all?
Of course there's sexual morality. I already laid it out at the fucking beginning. Have safe, consensual sex. And I wouldn't even necessarily say the safe thing is morality, as more important to morality if it's only your own safety you're putting at risk. If you're putting other people's safety at risk, that would be a much bigger problem. Have consensual sex. Adults can only have consensual sex with other Homo sapien adults.
But then that can be moral with regard to the region and the age of consent.
No.
No.
The region
So
and the age of consent.
You're conflating morality and law there, John, which
Right.
you specifically said earlier you weren't going to do.
For the record, John, I think that a person who has sex with a person who clearly is over the age of 18 but has signs of not developing into adulthood would still be in the wrong. If you have sex with somebody who has a developmental disorder, for example, you would still be in the wrong. And generally, as the gap gets larger, it's not really easy to justify people in their 40s, even with people who are 18, 19, 20 years old. My basic rule of thumb is by 25, everybody has developed, it's actually not everybody, but almost everybody. For the most part, everybody's good. And once you're past 25, do whatever you want. If you're a 25-year-old who wants to fuck a 90-year-old and a 90-year-old who can get a 25-year-old to fuck you, go live in peace. But then your brain has formed, and for the most part, almost everybody will have the cognitive things they need to truly consent and not be predated upon when the gaps are that large. And this is more talking about, honestly, more even in-depth relationship. You can actually lax that up a little bit when you're talking about casual sexuality. But as far, only a little, don't fucking freak out on that in the comments. I realize the way people bad faith take things. Adulthood isn't merely the day you turn 18. You shouldn't be predatory toward people. You shouldn't try and, like a religion might, or like the Bible points out that you should get your girls in their formative years and craft them to the man to make sure that that is the identity, is the extension, as the helpmeet of their husband. You shouldn't do that kind of fucking shit.
In the UK, the age of consent is 16.
Yes, it's incorrect. It's wrong. Nobody who is an adult should have sex with a 16-year-old. That's too
In
young.
France, the
There
age
are
of
going to
consent
be,
is
as far as development goes, the margin of people who will have developed adequate cognitive skills to be able to truly consent to sex with an adult would be too low, even if that number is not zero. And it probably isn't. But I'm not going to sit here and go, well, here's the set of rules I've figured out for which 16-year-olds are fuckable and which ones aren't. It is going to be under a majority, and that's good enough for me. Around 18, you actually start to get close to a majority, which is why 18 is often the number. And 25, when you're my age, at 34, I'm not looking to date anybody who's off of that 25 number really probably ever again for the rest of my life. If I met in a natural setting, a 23-year-old, and we just super vibed, I don't know. I don't know what we would do, but I assume I would go, I'm 34. What the fuck is wrong with you that you want to be with a 34-year-old? And I've not met a 23-year-old that I can say, but conceivably 25 is an average and a 23-year-old could have developed that far. Conceivably is what I'm saying. It is conceivable, but once you hit 25, you're pretty much sunk in that it's going to be most of them. 18, you get close to majority as far as cognitive ability to consent and make those higher decisions. 16 is too low. That's too young of an age of consent. And people who are adults who fuck 16-year-olds are fucking creeps. 18, still a lot of creeps, but technically you could have a case-by-case basis on evaluating that person's cognitive ability.
So basically, John, in a nutshell, our sexual morality is dictated by a single, well thought out principle, and that sex should only occur between consenting, coherent, capable adults. Now, the one that comes from theism, hold on, John. The one that comes from theism, especially Christianity, is ad hoc. It is situational. It is through the dictates of some divine being that is filtered through a book that has to be interpreted. And in this era, back in the Old Testament, it was okay to have multiple wives. It was okay to have sex with individuals who are not currently mature, or not yet mature, having children. You look at Islam, they have the same exact thing. Then all of a sudden in the New Testament, all of a sudden it's different. The standards have changed. We have a single principle on our side, and you have this ad hoc mess on the other. And you're not going to convince us that your system is superior. It's not.
In the UK, until the year 2000, the age of consent for homosexuals was 18, but 16 for heterosexuals.
I like how you're ignoring the part that there used to be no age of consent. But yes, 16 is wrong.
But there was a huge amount of homosexuals pushing for a reduction to 16.
Because they wanted equality, John. At that time, society didn't understand better why those numbers were there, and they wanted equality with the heterosexuals. And that's an understandable movement that probably was staffed by mostly people close to the age of 18. It's almost like you're trying to describe to me, it's almost like you're trying to conflate homosexuality with pedophilia, but you wouldn't do that because you know that that's an age-old bigoted thing. And you want me to envision a 50-year-old homosexual who is saying, it's very important that we in our beautiful island of the kingdom, God save the Queen, make sure that I can fuck me a 16-year-old mummy. I don't think that was the majority of the movement there, John, even if you could find some individuals who were fucking creepy like that. I imagine it was, hey, how come the heterosexuals get this standard and we get a different one? And the reality is it shouldn't be 16. That's fucking weird and creepy as shit.
In France, it's 15.
It's bad in France. In America, there are places where it's 14 because we don't have a federal age of consent. It's fucking weird, and it shouldn't be that, John. Hopefully one day we don't even have to worry about ages. Hopefully there's just some way where like your smartphone will be like, yeah, we just checked the brain scan. Everything necessary to actually consent. Which, by the way, I don't even think consent is some huge... I'm not trying to put these crazy lines on it. I don't think you have to... Evaluating whether or not you want to have sex with a person is not the hardest decision in the world to make. At least not for me. I've been able to decide very easily whether I wanted to fuck someone or not. But having the cognitive ability to do so is important. And hopefully an arbitrary thing like a number where we're relying on the things of just like, oh man, I hope this person isn't underdeveloped and that the maturity is actually not this and that this won't turn later into a traumatic experience. That's some crazy fucking shit, John. What do you think
Until-
the age of consent should be, John? I guess that's my biggest question. As yours here trying to go like, well, the age of consent in this country is only, when are we going to get down to where it's like fucking 8 years old? Where do you think it should be, John?
Until 1997.
Where do you think it should be,
Yeah.
John?
I will answer that after I make this point.
Nope, you won't. You'll answer it. Nope, you will answer my question and not your silly one. What do you think the age of consent should be?
21.
Great, 21. And what should happen to what should the exception rules be around that? Who should be allowed to have sex with somebody under 21?
Nobody.
So a 21-year-old shouldn't be allowed to have sex with a 20-year-old? That's fucking nuts too, John.
That was the case in England until 1995.
I asked what you think, John. That's dumb as fuck. 21-year-olds can fuck 20-year-olds. Are you crazy, John? Usually, I think the standard number is a deviation of 4 years, works pretty universally well. 21, you're 17 to 21. That one's a little bit, that's the iffiest. 16 to 20, 19 to 15,
What is that math equation?
14
Half
to
your
18.
age plus 7?
That's supposed
Half
to
your
be
age
for
plus
one.
7?
I think that's supposed to be only for when you are 25 or older, because 25 would be 19.
Maybe, yeah.
But even that's it's right now. There is we need to have some sort of stricter segregation of people under 25 versus over 25. And then when you're right in that little bit of a zone of surrounding 25, things get a little bit trickier. John, I like your age of consent of 21, but I'm not going to stop a 21-year-old from fucking a 20-year-old. That's fucking nuts.
So what about an 18 and a 17-year-old?
I don't give a shit if an 18 and a 17-year-old fuck. I think I had an 18-year-old girlfriend when I was 17, and guess what? We fucked. Fucking crazy. It would be crazy to say within 1 year, that is the equivalent of, because what we're talking about is predatory behavior. Can a person, on the basis of our age difference, our knowledge gap, our wisdom gap, which even that's difficult to establish, because, for example, teenage girls tend to be much smarter than teenage boys, but they're not all predatory, so we have to adjust for all of these things based on age. Usually it's quite the opposite. The high pressure men and the men with the power who want to use that to leverage it to compel somebody. That's the bigger problem we have. But 17 to 18, these are not people who are so intellectually outside of each other's zones that they shouldn't be allowed to fuck each other, John. The fuck's wrong with you?
So what about a 16 and a 15? A 14
Yeah,
and a
let them
13?
fuck each other. As far as, look, here's the thing, John. I wouldn't make anybody under the age of 18, having sex with somebody with an appropriate enough. I wouldn't make it illegal. I would only make it illegal for adults to fuck people from that age group, with an exception for when you are close to that age group. Because if I'm 18 and my girlfriend's birthday is 2 days later, and we're having sex on my 18th birthday, I don't think that would justify locking me up or putting me on a registry because we didn't wait 48 hours to fuck again, John. Let people fuck. And this is the problem, because this started with what is essentially your core homophobia, but also what I find so wrong with religion in general. Hey, religion, stop being so obsessed with my penis, or Hank the penis stabber is going to come and get you. Leave me the fuck alone. God doesn't. If God exists, you really think he cares? He did all of this with the universe. He made all of it, and he's like, don't put that in a bum. Which, by the way, he doesn't even seem to care that I don't favor anal. I'm much more on the, do some of the other activities, but no special exceptions to me. John, let people fuck each other. Let them fuck each other. Only if there is a reason to worry about that somebody is a victim when they are being fucked. So, like non-consensual adult-child relationships, these sorts of things, should we have actual laws to prevent it? And then we still have social consequences for when a person is shitty, but not necessarily in a way that is illegal. That's all good. But fucking if two adults just want to fuck each other, John, stop threatening them with coal in their stocking or whichever imaginary bullshit you brought to the table. Let them fuck. That's the new Disney song. Let them fuck, let them fuck. I don't care about 1997. They were wrong then.
The age of consent in the Vatican was 12.
Yeah, that's wrong. It shouldn't be 12. Fuck the Vatican. They don't care about the age of consent now. They're still shuffling priests around.
Oh, I agree totally.
Let them fuck. Let adults fuck, John. Let them fuck. Let them fuck.
When I was at college,
what is this story going to be to the end of? Are you going to come up with a good reason we shouldn't let adults fuck each other? Or are you just sharing another, here's who I know was fucking and I don't favor that?
I believe adults should do whatever they choose to do as long as they accept the consequences.
But you don't even know that you're literally saying you don't actually want them to accept the consequences. You want them to accept the consequences you've made up and can't prove are actually consequences. John, if you stay on the phone for the next 5 seconds, you're going to get stabbed in the penis by Hank. I can't tell you when, but Hank the penis stabber is coming for you. Are you still on the phone? John, you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, well, you accepted the consequence, so it'll be on you when you get stabbed in the penis.
But you can't prove that there won't be a problem.
You can't prove there won't be a penis stabber.
John, we don't care about your hypothetical.
It's so dumb.
John, I'm going to propose to you, John, I'm proposing to you a hypothetical afterlife. You only go there if you believe that afterlife exists, and yet you have no good reason to believe it. What do you do now?
But everyone has the right to have that faith.
But John, it's possible that... John, my God. John, you are presenting to us hypotheticals with no evidence. You're hand-waving at a bunch of different nations about their age of consent. What is your point? What do you want from us? Like, what is the point of this in your script?
He wants to be Hank.
There is a moral choice.
Say that again?
There is a moral choice.
Yeah. So what?
Then you have to be prepared to take the possible consequences of that choice.
And you have to prove the possible consequences are possible, but you never will because you can't.
No, I don't have to prove it.
Yes, you do.
Think about John. Think about my hypothetical afterlife. If my afterlife is true, you're going there because you believe in it. Why would you want to take that risk, John?
Your hypothesis is that if someone leads a wonderful life and helps people and
that's all inconsequential. It doesn't matter what kind of life you lead. All that matters, whether you go into that afterlife or not, is whether you believe in it. And I have as much evidence as you do, which is zero.
But everyone
why would you take that risk, John? Why would you take that risk of going to that afterlife by believing in it? Why would you take that silly risk when you don't have to? Make the choice, John. Don't believe in it.
Why is it a silly risk?
It's a the hypothetical is silly. And your risk in believing that afterlife is the silly part, because don't believe in it. That'll make you not go there. Why take the silly risk of believing the afterlife that requires you to believe in to go there? Why even do that?
You have that choice if you want, and if you want to live your life according to certain principles, you have that freedom. I'm proposing an afterlife that you're going to go to if you believe in. You're proposing an afterlife for some other criterias. We have zero evidence. Neither of our afterlives can.
He just said something fundamentally untrue, though. It's not a freedom. If something, I don't have a freedom to do something if the result of doing it is going to prison. So if you're saying hell exists and I'll go there, then I don't have the freedom to have gay sex if doing so will send me to hell. I literally have the opposite. That's literally how all of our societies work. If they make a law against it, you still get to perform the activity, in most of them, before you actually go to prison for doing it. So what you said was fundamentally untrue. Sorry, I just had to cut in because what he said was such bullshit, but he can't prove that the fucking prison even exists.
So John, you might as well be threatening us. John, you might as well threaten us with unicorns here. We don't care.
And that's your choice.
Yes.
But you don't have the right to say someone who thinks otherwise is lesser.
Yeah, I do. You're a lesser of a thinker. You are. And I actually have the right to say anything. I technically have the right to say, I think anyone who thinks otherwise should go to prison. Now, I don't actually believe that, but I have the right to say it.
I think people who believe in things that they can't demonstrate or show to be true are irrational, and they will believe in many things that don't exist. And I think you are one of those people.
It's so funny how often he says something and then we'll either say, I never said that when you repeat it word for word, or in this case, he said you don't have the right. And I said, I actually do have the right to say that or anything else. And he went, yes, of course you have the right. It's very funny. It's the guy, he just, anyway, I've now documented. This is Hank the penis stabber.
He has no eyes.
Hank, he doesn't need eyes. He's stabbing penises.
He just goes off of instinct. He just knows where to go. Yeah.
Hank the penis stabber lives by the sea. He's coming for your penis 'cause you wore a black tee. Hank the penis stabber. Anyway, let's finish up with John. I'm so dumb.
I think we've been done with John.
And dumb. You good, John?
Yes, that's fine. I will just finish by saying, I do not believe that an atheist is lesser than a theist.
Great.
But it would appear you believe a theist is lesser than an atheist.
I think theists are lesser thinkers than many atheists.
John, don't do that to us. We think less of your ideas, not you as a person.
Yeah, lesser. I have no idea. Is not what
John, the only thing I know,
lesser.
John, the only thing I know about you is that you're irrational. You want to read from a script to have a conversation. You might be a great guy to have a beer with. I don't know. But I don't think less of you as a person. I think less of your ideas and your methods.
It's not great to have a beer with if you want somebody who's going to help you get laid. Don't do it. Don't do it, I say to you. Think of Hank, the penis stabber. John, I think that many theists are lesser thinkers than many atheists. I wouldn't talk about the totality of anybody, but as far as the totality of your humanity, I think all humans are equal. Goodbye, everybody. Or goodbye, John. Not everybody, just John. Bye-bye.
Just the show right there.
Bye-bye, John.
I will continue to watch your show and find it interesting.
Bye, driver. Bye. Bye-bye, driver.
John, think of all the things, all the hypotheticals that could potentially threaten you, and imagine worrying about them. Like, how tiring can that be?
The penis stabber.
John picks that one. John picks that one because he has an emotional attachment to that particular hypothetical, that particular what if. And like, I don't understand. Like, why? Like, can't you see that this is either emotionally driven or, well, fear is emotion, but it's fear driven. Like, you have your choice. And if you make it, you're going to go to the hypothetical bad place that I'm proposing that I can't show at all. And I admit out of my own mouth, I have nothing to show you for. And we expect us to take that seriously. Like, how different is that from the Hank the penis stabber, or from the Islam hell, or from,
say it right.
I don't know what.
It's a song now. Say it right.
I wasn't even listening to your little song. I'm sorry. I am not musically inclined.
The penis stabber.
Yeah, okay.
Lived by the sea. I'll let you have this one. Theist.
No, thank you.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, Pokemon Master and Executive Producer on The Line. Would you like to support a specific show on The Line or The Line in general? There are special tiers on our Patreon and in our channel memberships. You can do just that. By the way, you could consider leaving a super thanks down below. You could also like, subscribe, and leave a regular comment. All of these are great. Now, I'm going to get back to crushing loneliness, but while I do that, why don't you check out one of these?